Some betrayals don't shatter you, they carve out the creature you were always meant to become. They had grown up on the same dirt road, a narrow path between sunflower fields, where children's laughter once rose like dust into the evening sky. Back then, their world was small and perfect. She used to race him to the old well, always losing, always pretending to be mad, and he always made it up to her with a stolen apple or a promise he couldn't possibly understand at age 7. He once promised, "I'll choose you in every lifetime." She believed him. Even years later, when they married young and moved to the city, she still believed him. She believed him through the hospital visits, through the quiet sighs doctors tried to soften, through the sterile rooms where she learned words like secondary infertility, ovarian insufficiency, probability close to 0. She blamed herself. He told her not to. He said children didn't matter, she mattered. And because she loved him with the kind of devotion that borders on blindness, she let herself believe him again. For years, she built her life around him. His comfort, his dreams, his future. She forgot her own. It was Lena, her best friend since childhood, who helped her survive the darkest days. Lena was the one who braided her hair after surgeries, who made her tea when the painkillers made her dizzy, who held her when she cried over yet another negative test. Lena was the one person she trusted enough to say the words, "Maybe he deserves a real family," without fearing judgment. Lena had always been there. Lena knew everything. Lena was the safe place she ran to when she thought she was losing her mind. And that is why the truth felt like being gutted from the inside. It started small, too small for a normal person to notice, but she wasn't normal anymore. Years of watching her own body betray her sharpened her perception. She became painfully aware of every shift, every tone, every silence. Her husband began coming home later. He smelled faintly of a perfume she recognized but couldn't place. His eyes darted away too quickly when she asked simple questions. He slept closer to the edge of the bed. Of course, she blamed herself again. Maybe she was too emotional. Maybe the infertility broke something between them. Maybe she was no longer enough. Her therapist once said, "You're too trusting." She had laughed. Only later would she realize it was not a compliment. One rainy Thursday, she borrowed his car to pick up medicine. Inside the cup holder was a hair tie. Black silk. A tiny gold ring attached. She stared at it, her pulse slowing to a terrifying calm, because she had seen that exact hair tie many times. Lena wore them. Only Lena. But she didn't let herself believe it, not yet. People like her don't jump to conclusions. They sink into them slowly, drowning one lung at a time. The real confirmation came 3 weeks later. She wasn't snooping. She wasn't even suspicious anymore, she had convinced herself the hair tie meant nothing. But his phone lit up while he showered. A message preview appeared. Just one line. "Same place tonight?" She suspects nothing. Smirking face. From Lena. The world went silent. Her vision blurred, not from tears but from the sharpness of absolute betrayal cutting behind her eyes. She didn't open the phone. She didn't need to. The brevity of the message was the cruelty, it meant this wasn't new. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was routine. Planned. Practiced. Comfortable. She sat on the couch and stared at the wall while the shower kept running. She felt nothing for a long time. No anger. No heartbreak. No disbelief. Just emptiness. A clean, cold, serene emptiness. When he walked out of the bathroom and smiled at her, she finally understood something profound. He had never feared losing her. But now, he would. She nodded, smiled back, and kissed him softly, so softly he mistook it for affection. But inside her mind, something ancient and merciless awakened. Not rage. Not spite. Strategy. Patience. Precision. He had taken her heart. Lena had taken her trust. Now she would take everything. Not with violence. Not with screaming. Not with impulsive destruction. Her revenge would be slow. Beautiful. Mathematically exact. It would begin with doubt. Grow with paranoia. Spread like infection through his career, his friendships, his reputation, his finances. And when he finally realized what she had become, what he had created, it would be too late. That night, she looked at herself in the mirror and whispered. You wanted a son. You wanted a future. You wanted a life without me. You should have prayed I stayed weak. Because the woman staring back at her was not the girl who used to race him to the well. This woman would burn the entire village of their past if it meant he felt even an ounce of the suffocating pain he forced her to carry for years. And when the flames reached him, he would finally understand. She had always been capable of darkness. She just never had a reason. Until now. The next morning, everything looked the same, his shoes by the door, his half-finished coffee, the jacket he always forgot to hang. But she saw the world differently now, as if someone had turned the lights on for the first time. Every detail had meaning. Every silence carried intention. Every lie had a taste. And she let him believe she was still blind. She played the part of the loving wife with a perfection that would have impressed even her younger self, soft tone, gentle smiles, warm dinners, long hugs. She made it effortless. She leaned her head on his shoulder. She laughed at jokes that no longer amused her. She asked, "Are you working late again?" with such innocence that guilt didn't dare touch his face. But she watched him. She recorded everything. The time he left. The time he returned. The mood shifts. The excuses. The inconsistencies. Her notebook filled with patterns. His downfall began as ink on paper. Meanwhile, she sent Lena a message. I miss you. Let's meet soon. A test. A small, calculated move. Lena replied instantly. Of course. I've been so busy lately, but I'd love to see you. Tell me when. Busy. Yes, too busy betraying the only friend who ever protected her. But the wife didn't respond. Not yet. She needed Lena comfortable, unsuspecting, confident she was still the trusted confidant. Revenge requires 3 things. Patience, preparation, and proximity. She was gathering all 3. The first trap she planted was emotional. Before destroying a man, you must break his footing, remove every certainty he believes he has about you. If his world feels stable, he cannot crumble. She needed him off balance, confused, wary but not alarmed. So she changed. Not dramatically, just enough for him to feel it without being able to define it. She woke earlier than usual. She went to the gym. She dressed better. She hummed while cooking. She smiled at her phone, sometimes purposefully, letting him catch glimpses. The shift was subtle, but men like him, men who cheat because they need control, feel even the smallest loss of it like a wound. By the 3rd day, he asked. Everything okay with you? She nodded. Perfect. He didn't believe her. She could see it, the tiny crease between his brows, the curious tilt of his head, the way he studied her when he thought she wasn't looking. He wondered if she suspected. He wondered if someone else had her attention. Good. Suspicion is a blade. She had just placed it at his throat. Next came the financial stage. Most of their assets were joint, but she had always let him manage them. Trust, after all, had been her greatest flaw. Now she studied every account, every investment, every loan. She learned quickly where the stability lay and where the cracks were forming. He had one vulnerability she didn't expect. An upcoming business merger, critical for his promotion. He had told her about it proudly, spilling details he shouldn't have said aloud. He never imagined she'd weaponize his achievements. She contacted a lawyer, quietly, discreetly, under her maiden name. She asked questions that would make most men sweat. She requested documents, analyzed liabilities, memorized weak points in contracts. Revenge is an art. But it also requires math. By the end of the week, she knew how to dismantle his financial security without touching a single penny. Leaks, rumors, carefully placed questions that would cast enough doubt to derail the merger entirely. But she didn't strike yet. Before financial ruin, came psychological erosion. That weekend, she made her first move. Saturday morning, she cooked breakfast, his favorite. Soft eggs, toasted bread, sliced avocado, coffee with the exact amount of cream. She placed it in front of him, kissed his cheek, and sat across from him with a calmness that unnerved him. Then she said casually, "I ran into Lena yesterday." The fork paused mid-air. "She mentioned you two talked recently. Funny, I didn't know you two kept in such close contact." He swallowed hard. The lie was already forming. He smiled, too quickly. "Oh, just work stuff." She asked about the renovation project. Renovation? Interesting choice. She let him ramble for a full minute, digging himself deeper into the hole. Then she tilted her head and asked softly, "Why are you lying?" The room froze. Her voice had no anger, no accusation, just curiosity, which was far more terrifying. He blinked. "Lying? I'm not lying." His laugh was thin, brittle. She held his gaze for a long, quiet moment. Then she smiled. "Of course you're not." And she stood up, kissed his forehead, and left the room. That single interaction cracked him more than any screaming ever could. Men like him expect rage. They expect tears. They know how to fight guilt, they've trained for it. But they do not know how to fight silence. And they do not know how to fight a woman who stops reacting. All day, he followed her with his eyes, waiting for the explosion that never came. He was restless. Anxious. Off balance. Exactly where she wanted him. That night, while he pretended to sleep, she sat beside him, watching the man she once adored. The man who threw away their decades for desire dressed as comfort. The man who never expected consequences from the woman who once worshipped him. She whispered into the darkness. "You broke something in me. Now I will break something in you." But he didn't hear. Not yet. Her revenge had only begun its first breath. And the next moves, the ones that would shake his world, were already unfolding in her mind like a map of destruction. For the next week, she moved through the house like a ghost with perfect posture, present enough to be noticed, distant enough to be feared. She had mastered the most powerful psychological weapon a betrayed woman can wield. Controlled indifference. Not coldness. Not hostility. Just absence. She still cooked, still spoke politely, still smiled when he walked into the room. But her eyes were no longer soft, they were mirrors. He couldn't read them. He didn't know what she knew or suspected. He sensed danger, but he couldn't locate the source. Men like him can confront anger. But they crumble under uncertainty. He began checking her phone when she showered. He scrolled through her messages carefully, hoping not to leave traces. He found nothing, because she left exactly zero evidence, zero hints, zero emotional slips. But the fact he was searching at all meant her strategy was working. He was becoming afraid of losing her. Afraid of what she might do. Afraid of what she might know. She watched the paranoia bloom inside him like a bruise. On Thursday evening, she went out, something she rarely did alone. No explanation. No details. She simply put on a black dress, tied her hair differently, and left her perfume heavy in the hallway. He tried to sound casual when he asked, "Where are you going?" She paused at the door, looked at him with a calmness that made him swallow hard, and replied, "Out." That was all. She didn't add the courtesy of a smile. Didn't offer reassurance. Didn't give him the emotional clarity he was desperately searching for. She left him in the silence of his own imagination. And imagination is where guilt grows fastest. She didn't actually meet anyone. She parked near the river, walked slowly along the water, and imagined the next phases of her plan like a conductor arranging an orchestra of ruins. When she returned 3 hours later, her husband was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV. He wasn't. His eyes flicked to the door the second it opened. His shoulders relaxed in visible relief. For years, she had been the one waiting for him. Now the roles had reversed. Good. The next day, she made her move on Lena. She sent a single message. "Coffee today?" A simple invitation. Innocent. Perfectly normal. 20 seconds later, Lena responded. "Absolutely. I've missed you." Face blowing a kiss. Of course she had. Affairs seem exciting until the wife suddenly becomes unpredictable. Then guilt becomes cumbersome. Then proximity becomes dangerous. Lena needed reassurance, and the wife knew exactly how to give it to her. With a performance worthy of an award. They met in a cafe the three of them used to visit years ago. The wife arrived first and chose a table near the window. She kept her face soft, almost fragile, the way she used to look after every failed pregnancy attempt. She let her shoulders slump just enough to appear tired, not broken. When Lena entered, she greeted her with an overly warm embrace. The kind only a longtime friend would give. But when Lena hugged her, she inhaled. And Lena smelled like the same perfume that had clung to her husband's shirt. Sweet. Familiar. Invasive. Her stomach twisted, but she controlled her expression with the discipline of a surgeon. They sat. Lena talked. Too much. Too fast. Overcompensation, the first sign of guilt. She rambled about work, about her new yoga class, about the weather, about mutual friends. She avoided any topics that touched the wife's marriage. The wife nodded, sipped her coffee, and watched Lena's hands fidget. Then she said quietly, "You've always been the person I trusted the most." The cup in Lena's hand froze mid-air. The wife smiled gently and reached across the table to squeeze her friend's fingers. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Lena swallowed hard. Her eyes glossed over, fear, guilt, relief, all tangled into a single trembling breath. But then the wife added softly, looking down at her cup. "People can be cruel, you know. They pretend to care, and then they stab you where you least expect." Lena's hands jerked. Some of her coffee spilled. The wife didn't react. She lifted her eyes, met Lena's, and said, "But you'd never do that to me, right?" It wasn't a question. It was a scalpel. Lena's voice cracked. "No. Never. A lie. A predictable one." Good. The cracks in her composure meant fear was sinking in. But the wife wasn't finished. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "If someone betrayed me, I think I'd become someone even I wouldn't recognize." Lena blinked rapidly. Her throat tightened. Her breathing stuttered. She forced a laugh. "You're scaring me." But the tremor in her voice betrayed her. The wife reached out again, brushing a strand of hair from Lena's cheek. "No, darling. I'm just being honest." When the meeting ended, Lena hugged her again, too tight, too desperate. The wife felt the quake in her arms. Lena wasn't afraid of being caught. She was afraid of what would happen if she was. Perfect. By the time the wife returned home, the next phase of her revenge had already seeded itself into the minds of both her targets. Fear. Doubt. Paranoia. But she wasn't done. That night, she left a small note folded under her husband's pillow. Not a threat. Not an accusation. Just a single line handwritten in ink. I know. No signature. No context. She knew he would find it when she left early for work the next morning. A note like that doesn't destroy a man. But it makes him destroy himself. And tomorrow, the erosion of his sanity would begin. He found the note at 6:42 a.m. She heard the sharp intake of breath from the hallway as she pretended to blow-dry her hair. A moment later, she heard the mattress shift, the soft thud of his feet hitting the floor, and the frantic rustling of sheets, like he expected more notes, more clues, more truths hidden in the bed where betrayal had nestled. She didn't move. She didn't react. She didn't even look at him when he walked into the bathroom holding the note between two trembling fingers. What is this?" he asked. She turned off the dryer slowly, deliberately. Her expression remained blank, a perfect, impenetrable calm. "What do you mean?" she replied, tilting her head as if genuinely confused. "This." He pushed the note toward her. "What is this supposed to mean?" She blinked once. Twice. Then she stepped closer, took the note from his hand, and read it with a quiet hum as though seeing it for the first time. Finally, she shrugged. "Maybe you wrote it. I don't remember leaving anything like this." It was a psychological kill shot. He paled. I didn't write it." "That's odd." She folded the note and placed it in the drawer. "Well, I'm sure it's nothing. Don't overthink." But he did. Of course he did. Because she planted a seed with surgical precision. Was she the one who knew? Or had someone else exposed him? Or was she lying? Or had Lena said something? Or, worst of all, had he left a trace he didn't remember? She let him spiral. The rest of the morning, he followed her around the house like a shadow with a heartbeat too loud. He asked questions disguised as small talk, fishing for confirmation she wouldn't give. "Do you feel okay? You've been different lately. Are we good? Is something going on?" Each time, she smiled gently and answered with the emotional equivalent of smoke. "I'm fine. Everything is good. Don't worry. You're imagining things." He couldn't bear it. By the time he left for work, he was sweating. She watched him from the window as he paused at the car door, staring at it like it might explode. Good. Let the paranoia seep into his bones. He deserved no peace. That afternoon, she started phase 2 of the psychological traps. Isolation. She texted a few mutual friends, a carefully chosen handful. Her message was simple. "Have you noticed him acting strange lately? I'm worried." Nothing specific. No accusations. Just worry. People love gossip disguised as concern. Within minutes, replies poured in. "He seemed nervous last time I saw him. Is something going on? We're here if you need anything." She responded to each with vague gratitude. She didn't need to push rumors. She merely needed to open the door. People walked through willingly. By the time he came home that night, 2 people had already messaged him. "Everything okay, man? Your wife said you're acting weird." He panicked. She watched from the kitchen as he typed frantic replies, trying to backtrack, trying to re-establish control. But the beauty of social tension is this. Once people suspect instability, they see it everywhere. Later that evening, she planted the next trap. While he showered, she took his phone. Not to snoop, she already knew everything she needed. She simply changed the contact name of Lena to Dr. Ivanova, Clinic. She didn't delete messages. She didn't rewrite anything. She only altered one thing: the identity of the sender. Because when he saw Dr. Ivanova, clinic, appear on his screen again, asking, "Same time tomorrow? Need to continue what we started?" winking face, he would panic. She placed the phone back exactly where she found it and went to the living room with a book in hand. Moments later, she heard it. The phone buzz. The pause. The sharp inhale. The slap of wet footsteps rushing across tiles. He stepped into the living room with his towel dripping, his phone gripped like a weapon. "What is this?" he demanded. She didn't look up from her book. "What's what?" This message. "Why is the clinic texting me like this? Did you do something to my phone?" She raised her eyes slowly. Her expression was soft, measured. "Why would your doctor send that kind of message?" He froze. She watched his mind unravel in real time. I don't know, maybe it's a mistake, maybe someone hacked me." She closed her book calmly. "Or maybe," she said, voice gentle as a knife hidden under silk, "it's exactly what it looks like." She stood up, walked past him, paused briefly to rest a hand on his arm. A single, devastating gesture of pity. And whispered, "Be honest with yourself, if no one else." Then she left him in the hallway, trembling, dripping, unraveling. For the first time since she had discovered the affair, he felt fear. Not the fear of exposure. Not the fear of losing her. But fear of what she might already know. And what she might be capable of. He no longer questioned if she had changed. He began to wonder how much she had changed. And the best part? She had not even started destroying him yet. The next morning, he didn't leave for work right away. He lingered by the door, checking his pockets twice, keys, phone, wallet, like a man about to face an execution he couldn't explain. His eyes darted toward her repeatedly, searching for something: comfort, forgiveness, reassurance, but she offered none. He stood there in silence until she finally asked, without looking up from her tea, "Is something wrong?" The question was harmless, neutral, perfectly designed to make him stumble. He licked his lips. "No. I don't understand why the clinic, why the doctor would text." He stopped mid-sentence, realizing he was babbling. She set her cup down gently. "Sometimes people show their true intentions in unexpected ways." He stiffened. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, rising from the table, "that people reveal themselves eventually. Even when they think they're being careful." She let the words float in the air like smoke. He inhaled them like poison. Then she walked past him without another glance, leaving him standing by the door with a silent question pressing into his ribs. Does she know, or is she playing with me? The truth, she was doing both. At work, he couldn't focus. His mind kept circling the same nightmare. What if she knew everything? What if someone had told her? What if Lena had slipped up? What if his messages were discovered? What if? What if? What if? He couldn't breathe. Perfect. Because she had already set the next trap in motion. At noon, a courier delivered an envelope to his office desk. No sender name. No explanation. Inside were 3 photos. Not of him. Not of Lena. Not of the affair. No, she wasn't finished with him yet. Rushing would spoil the artistry. Instead, the photos showed his car parked outside Lena's apartment. Lena entering the passenger seat at night. A silhouette, his, opening the door for her. Nothing incriminating enough to scream affair. Nothing explicit. Nothing undeniable. Just enough to tighten the noose around his thoughts. Just enough to make him sweat through his shirt and hide the envelope under a stack of papers like a guilty schoolboy. Just enough to make him feel hunted. He spent the rest of the day staring at the photos on repeat, imagining who took them. Imagining who sent them. Imagining who else might have them. He arrived home early that evening, anxious, twitchy, his eyes darting toward every shadow in the house. She sat on the couch reading, the picture of serenity. He hovered near the doorway like a child afraid to disturb a sleeping beast. Did you send something to my office today?" he asked. She looked up slowly, eyebrows raised. "To your office?" "No." "Why?" He swallowed. "No reason." "Are you sure you're all right?" she asked, her tone soft but laced with a subtle challenge. He nodded too quickly. "Just work stuff." She returned to her book. A dismissal. A lethal one. Because the moment she dismissed him, he started doubting not just the world around him. He doubted himself. That night, phase 3 began. Manipulated honesty. She waited until he was nearly asleep, lying stiffly beside her, pretending calm. Then she whispered into the darkness. "I had a dream last night." He tensed. "What kind of dream?" She let silence stretch, then said quietly. "You weren't alone." He turned onto his side. "Alone where?" "In the dream," she breathed softly. "You were with someone familiar." "I couldn't see her face, but—" She paused. "I woke up feeling like I finally understood something." His heartbeat thudded against the mattress. She turned away from him, offering her back like a final, devastating punctuation. "Good night." He didn't sleep. He lay awake with eyes wide open, chest tight, replaying every moment of his betrayal and every lie he'd told her. Wondering how much she saw in him now. Wondering how much she suspected. Wondering how much longer he could hide. The next morning, dark circles bruised the skin beneath his eyes. She kissed his cheek gently. A mercy he no longer deserved. And whispered. "You look exhausted. If something is eating at you, you can tell me." A tremor ran through him. "I'm fine." She smiled. "We both know that's not true." He stood frozen, jaw clenched, heart pounding. And then she delivered the final blow of the day. "You should talk to someone you trust." Someone he trust. A concept that now terrified him. He had trusted Lena. He had trusted secrecy. He had trusted his lies. And every one of those pillars wobbled beneath him. She turned away and walked into the kitchen, leaving him with a truth that struck harder than any accusation. He no longer trusted himself. Her revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It wasn't chaotic. It was slow. Methodical. Elegant. She didn't break him. She made him break himself. And tomorrow, the cracks she planted would finally begin to split wide open. By the 6th week of her quiet campaign, he no longer recognized himself in the mirror. His jaw clenched when he tried to smile. His eyes darted like a hunted animal's. He jumped at the sound of his own ringtone. He slept lightly, if at all, waking at every creak of the house, terrified of shadows that never moved. But she hadn't touched him. Hadn't confronted him. Hadn't accused him. She didn't need to. Because the most efficient form of revenge is the one where the victim destroys himself while you simply guide the direction. That morning began with a whisper of unease. He woke to find her already dressed, her hair done, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. She stood by the window, looking out at the dull gray sky. "Morning," he said softly. "Morning." Her tone chilled him. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. "I've been thinking, maybe we should take a trip. Just the two of us. Get away for a while." She turned her head slightly. A trip won't fix what's broken. He stiffened. What's broken? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked back out the window, leaving him drowning in his own assumptions. He moved closer, tentative. Are you saying something is broken? He asked. She didn't look at him. I'm saying things aren't what they used to be. His chest tightened. He reached for her hand. She let him touch it, briefly, then pulled away gently. Not a rejection. A hesitation. That was worse. Because hesitation leaves room for hope. And hope deepens the eventual fall. Phase 4, ruin from the outside. He left for work earlier than usual, tense and unfocused, unaware that today she had planted a new seed, one not aimed at his mind, but at his world. Before he even stepped into the office, whispers had begun circulating. Someone, anonymous, had sent the same photos he received to HR, to the board, and to several colleagues. But with a twist. A short message attached. This may affect the upcoming merger. Thought you should know. The message didn't name him. Didn't accuse him. Didn't mention an affair. It simply forced his private sins into the hallway of professional consequence. 2 hours into the workday, he was called into a meeting. A polite interrogation. A calm request for clarification. Are these photos real? Why are you meeting a woman from outside the company after hours? Could this be used against you during merger negotiations? Is there any potential conflict of interest? Any risk of blackmail? Blackmail. The word alone nearly cracked him. His answers were halting, unconvincing. He looked guilty even when he tried not to. They thanked him, dismissed him. Then began the internal risk assessment that could bury his career. And she knew. Because she had orchestrated it. At home, she waited. That afternoon, she prepared dinner, nothing fancy, just comforting, familiar dishes she used to make when they were newly married. Dishes he loved. A cruel touch of nostalgia. When he walked in, pale and shaken, her soft, welcome home nearly broke him. He sank into a chair like a deflated balloon. Tough day? She asked gently. He nodded. She offered him a small, sympathetic smile. You look like you've seen a ghost. He exhaled shakily. Someone sent photos. To my job. Her brow furrowed just enough to look convincing. What photos? He swallowed. Just, of me. And a friend. Someone is trying to sabotage me. Maybe someone from the merger team. She tilted her head. Or maybe someone closer. He froze. She looked back at her food, as though the thought had been random, harmless. What do you mean? He whispered. She shrugged. People sabotage for many reasons. Jealousy. Revenge. Fear. Who knows? Then she took a bite and changed the subject effortlessly. He stared at her for the rest of dinner, searching her face for any sign she was involved. But she had perfected her mask too well. The tap he couldn't ignore. Before bed, she placed her phone face down on the nightstand and went to shower. His paranoia surged. He reached for the phone. His hand trembled. He checked her messages with frantic urgency. Nothing incriminating. Nothing suspicious. Nothing connected to his torment. But there was something new in her search history. How to emotionally detach from someone you love. Signs a partner has moved on. Starting life over after betrayal. All searched that morning. His heart plummeted. She came out of the shower in a towel, hair damp, and froze when she saw the phone in his hand. He panicked. I wasn't, I just. She didn't shout. Didn't accuse. Didn't react at all. She walked toward him slowly, her expression unreadable, until she stood right in front of him. Then she took the phone from his trembling hand and said quietly, "I didn't know you were so afraid of losing me." That single sentence collapsed him inward. He sat down on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, whispering, "I don't want to lose you." She reached out, touched his shoulder. Soft, warm, gentle. And replied, "Then maybe you shouldn't have made choices that put us here." He froze. Breath caught. Heart stopped. She said nothing else. Just walked to the wardrobe and began dressing for bed. And for the first time, he truly understood. She knows. He just doesn't know how much she knows. Which meant he now lived in fear of every day that followed. Exactly as she intended. He woke to silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that feels staged. Constructed. Intentional. Her side of the bed was made. Her clothes were gone. The closet door hung open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. A single envelope lay on her pillow. He didn't open it. Not yet. Not because he wasn't terrified. But because he already sensed whatever was inside would finish what little remained of him. At work, instead of sympathy, he found chaos. The merger he depended on, the promotion he bragged about, had been halted. Someone had provided the board with documents proving he'd been funneling company funds into a private account. An account he didn't even know existed. He denied it. Shouted. Pled. But everything was in his name. Every transfer. Every signature. Every timestamp. Forgery? Impossible. The documents were perfect. That's because she had obtained everything months earlier. Passwords he left open, paperwork he signed without reading, contracts he emailed carelessly. She built his downfall from the pieces he'd handed her. By afternoon, he was escorted out of the building. Security. Eyes staring. Whispers following. Humiliation scorched his skin. When he got home, trembling and breathless, he finally opened the envelope. Inside was a single sentence in her handwriting. "Now you know what it feels like to lose everything." But that wasn't the worst part. Below the note was a USB drive. And he recognized the label instantly. Lena's address. Her apartment number. A date. A time. He plugged it into the laptop with shaking hands. The screen filled with video. Security footage. Audio. Images. Everything. Every kiss. Every touch. Every betrayal. She had recorded it all. Not for pity. Not for proof. But for timing. When the video ended, he fell to the floor, gasping, clawing at his own chest as if he could tear out the guilt with his bare hands. But the climax was still ahead. Because he hadn't seen the second file. The second file opened automatically. A video of her sitting on their old village bridge at dusk, the same bridge where they used to talk about their future when they were teenagers. She looked calm. Serene. Almost glowing. "By the time you watch this," she began, her voice steady, "everything you built will already be gone." He sobbed, but she continued, her tone soft and lethal. "You took my ability to create life and replaced it with a life I didn't recognize. You made me question my worth. My femininity. My sanity." She folded her hands gently in her lap. "And then you gave the pieces of me to someone else. Someone I trusted more than myself." The wind moved through her hair. "But I didn't come here to talk about pain. I came here to talk about justice." Behind her, the camera panned slightly, showing their childhood village in the distance. The playground, the well, the dirt road where they grew up. "You forgot where I came from," she whispered. "Where we came from. You forgot I was raised to survive with nothing. You forgot I can rebuild from ash." Her eyes hardened. But you? You need your money. Your reputation. Your lies. Your women who make you feel like a man. She inhaled deeply. So I took all of it. Then she leaned closer to the camera, voice dropping to a whisper. But I'm not done. He paused the video, hands shaking uncontrollably. He couldn't breathe. He pressed play again. I've arranged one final surprise. You'll know it when it arrives. It may already be on its way. The screen went black. He tore through the house looking for her, shouting her name until his voice cracked. But she wasn't there. He called her phone. Switched off. He called Lena. Also off. He drove to Lena's apartment. Police were already there. A neighbor had reported a fight. A missing woman. Broken glass. Blood. He ran. Screamed. Begged to be let inside. But he wasn't a suspect. Not yet. He was simply a man whose world had just been set on fire. And then his phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. Check your mailbox. He sprinted home, ripped open the metal door, and found a small box. Inside was a key. Their key. The original key to their childhood home. The house where they first kissed. Attached was a note. Come alone. The childhood house stood in darkness when he arrived. No lights. No sounds. Just the creaking of old wood and the ghosts of who they used to be. He stepped inside cautiously. Her voice echoed from the living room. Not in person, but through a speaker she'd placed there. You always said this house felt like the beginning of our story. He followed the sound, desperate. Now it's where it ends. He found a single spotlight turned on in the center of the room, illuminating a table. On it. Documents. His forged transfers. His messages to Lena. The USB. His termination letter. His wedding ring. Hers beside it. He reached for them, sobbing. Then her final recorded message began. I'm not here to kill you. I don't need to. The spotlight flickered. You will wake up tomorrow with nothing. No job. No wife. No lover. No friends. Your betrayal destroyed me once. Now it will destroy you every day for the rest of your life. His knees buckled. I'm leaving the country, her voice continued. Starting a new life. One I wouldn't have had the courage to build if you hadn't shown me who you really were. A pause. You freed me. And now I free you. From the illusion that you ever deserved me. The recording clicked off. Silence. He collapsed onto the floor, a grown man reduced to a shaking, broken thing. He screamed her name until his throat bled. But she was already gone. Gone beautifully. Gone completely. Gone without leaving anything but scars he would never heal from. And for the first time since the affair began, he finally understood who she truly was. The woman he underestimated. The woman he betrayed. The woman he made powerful through suffering. The woman who walked away without ever touching a drop of his blood. Yet still managed to end him.